So, Hare Krishna, welcome. Krishna Dasa here. So, today we are going to continue with the sixth chapter. Today we're going to cover Shlokas 31 to 39. Now, before we begin, let me say the prayers to Guru and God. Om Ajnanaatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalake Chakshurum Militamena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna.
Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. So I'll start playing the shlokas. So today, Simranji, you're going to start reading, right? Okay. So let me start playing the shlokas.
सर्वभूतस्थितं यो मां भजत्येकत्वमास्थितः सर्वथा वर्तमानोऽपि स योगी मयि वर्तते आत्मौपं येन सर्वत्र समं पश्यति योऽर्जुन सुखं वा यदि वा दुःखं स योगी परमो मतः अर्जुन उवाच योऽयं योगस्त्वया प्रोक्तः साम्येन मधुसूदन एतस्याहं न पश्यामि चञ्चलत्वात् स्थितिं स्थिराम् चञ्चलं हि मनः कृष्ण प्रमाथि बलवदृढम् तस्याहं निग्रहं मन्ये वायोरिव सुदुष्करम् श्रीभगवानुवाच असंशयं महाबाहो मनो दुर्निग्रहं चलम् अभ्यासेन तु कौन्तेय वैराग्येण च गृह्यते असंयतात्मना योगो दुष्प्राप इति मे मतिः वश्यात्मना तु यतता शक्यो वाप्तुमुपायतः अर्जुन उवाच अयति श्रद्धयोपेतो योगाच्चलितमानसः अप्राप्य योगसंसिद्धिं कां गतिं कृष्ण गच्छति कच्चिन्नो भयविभ्रष्टश्छिन्नाभ्रमिव नश्यति अप्रतिष्ठो महाबाहो विमूढो ब्रह्मणः पथि एतन्मे संशयं कृष्ण छेत्तुमर्हस्य शेषतः त्वदन्यः संशयस्यास्य चेत्ता न ह्युपपद्यते.
Hare Krishna. Go ahead, Simranji.
Hare Krishna. Guruji, even Deepali wanted to read.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, you
Okay.
can do 31 to 35 and Deepali can do 36 to 39.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hare Krishna. Such a yogi who engages in the worshipful service of the super soul, knowing that I, the super soul, are more, remains always in me in all circumstances. Hare Krishna. 32. He is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true quality of all beings in both their happiness and their distress, O Arjuna. 33. Arjuna said, O Madhusudana, the system of yoga which you have summarized appears impractical and unendurable to me, for the mind is restless and unsteady. Hare Krishna. 34. For the mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong, O Krishna, and to subtle it, I think, is more difficult than controlling the wind. 35. Lord Shri Krishna said, O mighty armed son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by suitable practice and by detachment. Hare Krishna.
I'll read. Yeah, 36. For one whose mind is unbridled, self-realization is difficult work. But he whose mind is controlled and who strives by appropriate means is assured of success. That is my opinion. Arjuna said, "O Krishna, what is what is the destination of the unsuccessful transcendentalist who in the beginning takes to the process of self-realization with faith, but who later desists due to worldly mindedness and thus does not attain perfection in mysticism?" 638. O mighty arm Krishna, does not such a man who is bewildered from the path of transcendence fall away from both spiritual and material success and perish like a driven cloud with no position in any sphere? And 639. This is my doubt, O Krishna, and I ask you to dispel it completely. But for you, no one is to be found who can destroy this doubt. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. So our friend Arjuna has yet another doubt. We should all be thanking him, right? I mean, because of him, Krishna has explained so many concepts in such detail. So thank you, Arjuna. But we have so many Arjunas here because some of you sent me some questions and doubts about what we discussed in the previous session. So I thought I will spend a couple of minutes trying to clear those doubts. Because they say if you have a doubt in chapter 1, chapter 2 will not really make sense. I mean, you can read the entire book, but the doubt will still be there. So let us spend a couple of minutes. So what we discussed in previous session was about the nature of Brahman and how everything that we see in the universe points to the creator. Correct? This is what we discussed. And so I received a few questions. So the questions I received were how to overcome doubt. I mean, the doubt of existence of Atman and Brahman. How can we experience Brahman all the time? And then one person asked me, the desire to know and realize Brahman, is it not just another desire? In other words, you are saying, don't have desire, don't have attachment. So the desire to know Brahman, is this not just another desire? I hope I have covered some of the major questions that you had asked me. So let us start with the last question first, because it's very important to understand what we are doing here. Deepaji, you are saying something?
I also had a question. Can I ask you? I mean, I'll add on to that question quickly.
Okay.
No, so we in our last session we had said no sankalp and vikalp.
Yes.
So sankalp says shrishti. I mean, that's that phrase that keeps coming to my mind. So that I just wanted to put that into context. Sankalp says shrishti. I mean, you typically say you should have a sankalp, and then that becomes your death.
Okay, I'll touch upon that also.
Okay.
Definitely. I'll touch upon that. Okay. So the last question was about the desire to know God, desire to know Brahman. Isn't that just another desire? I mean, that's a good question. My answer is yes, it is another desire, but we should not look at it as just another desire. Why? Because it is that desire which has the potential to burn all other desires. So that one desire frees us from all other desires. So it is not just another desire. It is the master desire. It is the only desire that we should have. And then how can I have conviction in the existence and nature of Brahman? That is the other question. So in my opinion, the answer to that question, first, it lies in first removing the doubt about existence of Atman and Brahman. I mean, how do you have conviction means you have to first remove the doubt. Once the doubt is gone, the conviction will come. Makes sense? So it's very simple actually. So how do we get rid of the doubt? I mean, the answer is a very interesting answer that I can give you is the very fact that you have a doubt implies that there is a doubter. In other words, it implies that there is a conscience which is capable of doubting something. Is it not so? So one Swamiji, he very humorously said in one of his lectures, he said that having a doubt implies without any doubt that you are the doubter. So beautiful. So instead of focusing on the doubt, if you can focus on the doubter, you have to be convinced. This is very logical. There cannot be a doubt if there is no doubter. Somebody is doubting, that's why there is a doubt. So instead of focusing on the doubt, if you shift the focus to the doubter, then you will automatically be shifting the focus to the consciousness. Now, as discussed in the previous session, instead of focusing on created, try to focus on the creator. So instead of focusing on doubt, focus on the doubter. And try to shift your focus there, like, okay, who is this entity that is doubting? How do I know that entity? So that means there is something that exists, correct, which is capable of doubt. That way you can keep going towards or focusing more towards the creator. See, anything that we know can be doubted, of course. That is a fact, that anything that we learn, anything that we know can be doubted. However, we cannot doubt our existence, because if you don't exist, then the doubt doesn't exist, correct? I mean, if the doubter doesn't exist, then how can the doubt exist? So no matter whether you are young or old or strong or weak, you still exist, correct? So that existence is for sure. There is no question about that. The existence is there. So even when you have a doubt, you say, I have a doubt. So the I comes first. That means there is something that exists, and then the doubt comes later. Shankaracharya, I was really resisting my temptation, but I will have to quote him. Shankaracharya said something very insightful and very profound. He said that whoever doubts the Atman is the Atman of the doubter. See, it's so profound. So if you ask, like you are saying, I doubt the existence of an Atman. But then who is this I? That I is the Atman. So Shankaracharya says, whoever doubts the Atman is actually the Atman of the doubter. That one sentence is very profound in itself. So I hope by this kind of reasoning, it is not that hard to take away that doubt, that there is no doubt. Beyond doubt, you can see that there is a creator, there is existence, there is consciousness, there is Atman. So it is very self-evident that existence is self-evident. So there cannot be any doubt about that. So once you use this line of reasoning to take out your doubts, the conviction will automatically come in. Conviction is pretty much lack of doubt. Conviction is not something new that you have to put inside. Basically, when you take the doubts outside, the conviction remains. We are all born with conviction inside. It is just the doubts which are clouding them. I hope that answers the question. Now, Deepaliji, the answer to your question, I can have a very long answer also, but I'll try to keep it very concise, is Sankalp Shrishti is okay. I mean, a lot of people have a lot of opinions about Sankalp, Vikalp and all that. But what Sankalp basically is, we discussed last time that Spurna is your thoughts. And when you try to materialize the thought, then it becomes Sankalpa. And Shrishti means what? Shrishti means whatever is manifested. So if it was just in the thought, there is nothing to manifest. So something has to come from thought to manifestation. That is Sankalpa. So that part is true. Okay, so all they are saying is, you have to take some action. You have to act on your thoughts. Only then something can be manifested. That is the core meaning behind that. So that is okay. But the context that we were talking about was Sankalpa means you are trying to fulfill something, or you are trying to make sure that something that you want happens. And Vikalpa is the opposite. You are trying to make sure that something you don't want does not happen. That is Vikalpa. So Sankalpa, I want it to happen. Vikalpa, I don't want it to happen. In both these instances, you are spending your mind, your energy, your focus is on something to happen or not happen. So if you are busy in that all the time, where is time to focus on that which is the cause of everything? If you are focusing on that which is manifested or not manifested, how can you focus on the cause? Because Dhyana Yoga means what? Eventually you want to realize the creator. But Sankalpa and Vikalpa are focusing on the created. So yeah, they have a place. They have a purpose. But as a Dhyana Yogi, you have to rise above them. That is the message. So does that make it clear? Does it answer your question, Deepaji? Okay, I think
Yes,
you...
Guru. Yes.
Okay. So I hope this answers those three. I know this is not a very elaborate answer, but I've tried my best to give the answer in a concise manner so that it makes sense. If you still have questions, feel free, reach out to me, and I will try to extend my answers and provide more explanations next time. And so let us come back to Dhyana Yoga, what Krishna is trying to cover in 6.31 to 39. And we spoke about the two-step process. The first step is having the right knowledge about nature and existence of God. The next step is developing conviction in that knowledge. Rajeshji, I hope your question also got answered because that was in alignment, right? How do I have conviction? So the first step is remove the doubt. And then the conviction comes. Because without conviction, you can pass an exam, you can get a certificate, you can be called a scholar, you can be called a pandit. If that is your goal, go ahead. But there can be no evolution, spiritual evolution. There can be no self-realization. Those things do not come with knowledge. They come with faith. They come with conviction. And what do we need? Once the doubt is gone, is that in itself enough? That is the starting point. As long as you have doubt, conviction won't come. So get rid of the doubt using your knowledge as much as possible. And then this is where pride comes. The pride is not going to let you have a conviction. One doubt goes away, the pride says, how is it possible? I am smart. There is something that, something that Guruji is missing. Forget Guruji, something Krishna is missing. I definitely am smarter. I'm going to find a loophole. So that pride is going to be a big stumbling block. That is why Krishna says that till we manage the pride, you cannot reach Krishna. The pride is the biggest problem. And it is also not that hard to handle it. Krishna has given some very, very simple tips on how to handle pride. All he says, that is why he says, approach a teacher or approach a guru or a saint or sadhu, whoever you want to approach. He says, approach them with humility and surrender. That is the whole purpose. It is for you. So because when we have the humility, when we have the bhava of surrender, the pride automatically gets taken care of. Because Krishna has said that when you have complete surrender, then I will reveal myself to you. But to reach that surrender, you have to first have conviction that surrender is what is required. See, that is the problem, because we are all educated, we are all smart, intelligent. So somewhere our mind doesn't let us get into that bhava at all. We don't even realize that even when we are externally very soft-spoken or we come across as being very humble or whatever, deep inside that pride is there. So how do you get rid of it? First, you have to have knowledge that this is a problem, and that is where all of Bhagavad Gita comes into picture. It is teaching you how the mind works. It is teaching you how spiritual evolution works. It is teaching you what is required to get there. Krishna says, use all the knowledge, but ultimately you have to surrender. When you surrender completely, he says, I will reveal myself to you. Now, if you are all interested in And there is nothing wrong in intellectual analysis. It's a good exercise. The only thing is, don't get attached to the intellect. It's all I'm saying. It's all Krishna will also say, that don't keep hung up on that, But if you like further analyzing, intellectualizing, and if you need further proofs on the existence of God, there is a very beautiful book. It is called Nyayaku Sumanjali. I can share the link later. It's written in the 10th century by a great philosopher. His name is Udayana. So there in that book, he has given 8 proofs, analytical proofs of existence of Brahman. So if you are interested, if you have the mental bandwidth, you can go read that. Even in Christianity, there are 5 proofs given. You can Google it. You can Google the biblical 5 proofs of existence of God. So there are many such ways in which you can intellectualize further and remove the doubt. The goal should be to remove the doubt. The goal should not be to further, pamper the intellect. Okay. So again, I will come back to 6.31 and now go from 6.31 to 39. So Krishna said in the previous set of slokas that you have to have this vision of knowledge where you can see the Atman in everything. So if you can see the same Atman in everything, you will be able to see everything the same way. So what is preventing us from achieving that state? One of the main problems is when our consciousness is low, when we are in the lower levels of consciousness, we focus only on the external. So we focus on the body and we give too much importance to the external factors. That is why there are so many problems in the world today. People divide each other based on caste and creed and race. And these days, people even differentiate. If you're using WhatsApp, I'm using Telegram. So you are smart, I'm smart. Who is smart? Oh, you are using Facebook, I'm using Instagram. So basically, people find ways to kind of differentiate rather than to find the unity. People are busy finding differences. Why? Because they're all focusing on the external aspects, manifested aspects. But once we have a higher level of consciousness, then we can realize the self. And that is when the Samadarshana comes into picture. So I think back in 5.18, Krishna called this the vision of knowledge. Even in the previous session, we discussed 5.18, so I will not try to read it again. But make a note, 5.18, Samadarshana. And the elevated yogis who are even higher level of consciousness, they rise above even Samadarshana. That is where we saw the difference between self-realization and God realization. Self-realization, understanding that we are all the same. God realization is understanding that this collective everything is the same as God. So these yogis who have realized that kind of realization, they can be in the material world, they can act like common people, normal people, do normal things, but they are still always established in the Supreme. That is the highest state that Krishna is asking us to achieve. That is Krishna's fundamental message in the Bhagavad Gita. He says you have to reach that state where you are in the world, you are performing your duties, but still you are completely engaged in me. You are completely focused in me. That is what Krishna's desire is for all of us. Now, I hope you remember the distinction between Brahma Bhuta and Brahma Samparsa. We discussed that in the previous session. You want to revise, some of you, like Deepaji? You want to provide an explanation for that?
Sure, Guruji. Yeah. Yeah. So our mind is always wandering and unsteady. And to control our mind, Guruji explained and taught us the 2-step process. One is no attachment and no aversion. And the second step of this is once we have no attachment and no aversion, then we have to focus on the Lord. And if we do the above 2 steps consistently with dhriti, now he explained this concept of dhriti also. Dhriti means conviction. And pratyahara, that is, we need to control and withdraw our mind from all sensory pleasures. we will become stronger enough focused to the Lord, on the Lord rather. The stronger we are in our practice, that is our dhyana, meditation, we become calm and faith becomes stronger and then stronger than fear. And that's how we become fearless. And that therefore, with this, we are able to constantly think of the Lord and are aligned to the Lord, just like the gopis whose love for the Lord is unconditional. Now, this state of being free from material attachments and focusing on God will help us in self-realizing. This also means Brahma Bhuta, that is realizing ourselves as an individual level. At each one of us is an Atman and a small part of the Brahman, the Supreme. At this stage, when we connect with the Brahman, the Lord, that is when we are God realized and also referred as Brahma Samparsa. In this state, we see his presence everywhere, as in a dog, as a human being, or any other person, or he's omnipresent. The other example is like a balloon. In the balloon, there is the air. And finally, this air is in the atmosphere. So I'm just trying to explain to you what is Brahma Bhuta is more like at an individual level. And when we see the Atman in each and every individual, that's where we connect with God. So self-realization means realizing that you, me, the dog are all having the same Atman. And God realization means that all these Atmans are actually not separate from the Brahman. The realization that we all are a part of the integral universe, the Brahman.
Excellent,
Hare
excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much for taking the efforts to revise. Very nice. So is this concept clear, or does anybody still have any questions about the difference between self-realization and God realization? I mean, it may sound technical, but it is just an evolution. The first step will always be self-realization, and then will come God realization. So with my best wishes, all of us, we should all reach that stage of God realization in this lifetime. So when we studied chapter 2, we discussed the concept of detachment, and we saw how detachment actually expanded the scope of love. Do you remember that? We said that if you love your child because it is your child, it's my child, that's why I'm loving it, that is attachment, because the scope of attachment is very small here. How many children can you have? But if you love the child because it is a child, there are then millions of children that you can love. And that is detachment. So detachment doesn't mean don't become emotional or don't have love. Detachment basically means don't restrict it. So detachment actually expands the scope of your love. It grows your heart. So that is what is called as love without attachment. Loving somebody just for who they are instead of who they are to you, or what they can do for you. So if you can love without worrying about who they are to you or what they can do for you, then your love is in the mode of detachment. That is all there is. But I do want to, give you some kind of a warning as well. I mean, half knowledge is dangerous. I'm not claiming to have complete knowledge myself, but I definitely know that half knowledge is dangerous. Why half knowledge is dangerous? Because we should not take things literally and jump on it. Now, I can tell you a story, a simple story. Maybe that will help you understand what I'm trying to say about half knowledge. So there was a simpleton, very simple-hearted fellow, villager, and he always wants to understand like how to talk like these other people, and because he always thinks that he doesn't really know how to talk, he doesn't have much knowledge, that's always on his mind. And so that's playing on the back of his mind that I am simple, I don't know much, these people are talking so nicely, I don't know how they do it, I also need to understand. All of that is going on, and in that process his friend's mother passes away, and so he calls him for a funeral. So it is his friend's mother, so he has to go, right? So he's going, attending the funeral, but again he has absolutely no idea what he's supposed to say or do. He's like, yeah, it's a sad event, it's my friend's mother, it's a funeral, but what am I supposed to say, what am I supposed to do? I don't know. So he's just sitting in a corner, but he sees that some learned people are all, saying nice things. And one person says something which really, appeals to him. That person walks up to his friend and says, don't feel sad. We all miss her too, because she's not just your mother, she's the mother of the entire village. And this person says, wow, what a way to put across his thoughts, right? It sticks with him. Now, as you will imagine, a few months later, another friend, his wife dies, and he calls him for a funeral. Now, this guy is now thinking he's smart. So he goes to that funeral, and before anybody can say anything, he starts the bhashan. He says, don't feel sad, we also miss her. She was not just your wife, she was the wife of the entire village. Now, imagine the outcome, right? Now, this is what I mean by half knowledge is dangerous. Okay, so love has to be same, but that doesn't mean that you do what everybody is doing with the beloved, the person you love or the object you love. Like, for example, let us say you like Chitraji loves plants, and I have been to her house a couple of times, and they also have a carom board, and they really love their carom board as well. But when they love the plant, they make sure they water it, they give it sunlight. But thankfully, they don't water their carom board and they don't put it in the sunlight. But they love their carom board too, right? So you can love both the same way, but that doesn't mean you do the same things to both. There is a context involved, and that is where dharma comes into picture. So all I'm saying is, just because Krishna says, love everything the same way, samadarshana, all of that, you shouldn't try to jump to conclusions and get into trouble. There is still more learning to happen before understanding what is that unconditional love really, and what does it mean, and how do you practice it. And once you understand that, then I think it will work in your favor. That's all I'm trying to say. Okay. So Krishna is saying that he considers that person to be a perfect yogi who is able to respond to the joys and sorrows of others as if they were their own. This is the first step in unconditional love. Are you able to, feel sorry even for a stranger? That is one good step in unconditional love. Just like that, if some stranger is succeeding, are you able to feel joy instead of feeling jealousy? Your neighbor goes and buys a good car. Are you feeling happy or are you feeling jealous? So Krishna says, these are all simple things, simple tips. Start from here. Start this way and build your unconditional love. Are you able to love all children just like your children? Step one. Are you able to feel happy for anybody's success instead of feeling jealousy? Step two. Are you able to feel sadness for anybody's troubles? Sometimes the opposite happens. If somebody else suffers, some of us, we feel happy. Good, अच्छा हो गया उसके साथ. ऐसा कभी नहीं होना चाहिए. So everybody's trouble should feel like your own trouble. Everybody's joy, you should be able to share as your own joy. And Krishna says, these are all the mark of a yogi. And he calls such yogis as well-wishers of the whole world. This we can safely practice. So this can be a first step in practicing unconditional love. That's my advice based on Krishna's teachings. And then Krishna goes on and he talks about a 6-point action plan for success in Dhyana Yoga. And it is all given in these Shlokas only. So let us try to recollect what are those 6 points. The first point is control and conquer the senses. Krishna said this many times. The Indriya, they have to be under our control. Become free from desires and attachments. We discussed that. Step 3, eliminate all the distractions caused by the senses. Step 4, then develop one-pointed focus on God and God alone. Ananya Chintan. Step 5, maintain that focus without any break, consistency. And step 6, try to manage your attachments in such a way that you can develop samadarshana. Beautifully, he has given these 6 points. and keep looking at these 6 points and asking which of them you think you are able to practice, which of them you think you are good at, which of them you are not good at, and let's work on that. That is how we develop and evolve into yogis. That's all he says. Do they look achievable to you? How many of you think you can achieve this? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, Simran is not sure at all. Okay. Ekansh is saying no way. I don't think I can do it. I'm asking this question because, funny enough, Arjuna doesn't think these are achievable. So Krishna is saying this is how you manage your mind, and Krishna is saying these are the 6-step process for managing the mind. And Arjuna doesn't agree. Arjuna says, Krishna, what are you saying, Krishna? He's saying this system of yoga that you have described, it appears so impractical. It appears unattainable to me. He says, my mind is so restless. My mind is so unsteady. How do you think I can do whatever you're asking me to do? Now, Arjuna doesn't stop there. Arjuna likes to talk like a pandita. So he proceeds. And he's now telling Krishna, he's saying, Krishna, the mind is so restless. The mind is so turbulent. The mind is so strong. And then he says, in my opinion, Krishna, I feel it is easier to control the wind with my hands than it is to control my mind. Look at that. Just see what Arjuna is saying here. He's saying I can probably capture and control the wind, but I don't think I can control the mind the way you are asking me to. Now we are talking about one of the strongest men in the Dwapara Yuga. This is the same Arjuna when his teacher says there is a bird in a tree and you have to hit the eye. And this is the same guy who says the only thing I can see is the eye. The guy with so much of dhriti, the guy with so much of focus, he is saying that I don't think I can control the mind. The mind is just beyond me. So what to speak of us lesser mortals of Kali Yuga? What chance do we have? Now, the interesting thing is, in this sloka, he's addressing Krishna as Krishna only. He's saying Krishna. Because why? Because the word Krishna means a person who attracts the mind. He is somebody who can attract the mind of even the powerful yogis. So Arjuna is saying, Krishna, please attract my restless mind also. And teach me how to do this kind of mind control that you're talking about. So we have already seen in chapter 2 how Krishna is expert in psychology, and so Krishna knows how to manage difficult students, So Krishna is not reprimanding Arjuna. He's not saying, what a waste of time, Arjuna. I've been giving bhashan for such a long time. Now at the end of 6th chapter, you are telling me that, this is beyond you. He's not going into that mode. Instead, Krishna is addressing him as, he starts this answer by saying, Oh Mahabaho. So he tells Arjuna, oh mighty armed one. So he's again reminding Arjuna, you are the strong one here. And he says, what you say is correct. The mind is indeed very difficult. However, by practice and detachment, it can be controlled. So Krishna is giving an assurance, and he's giving a simple tip to Arjuna. He's saying, you are strong. I have confidence in you. And I can guarantee you is all you need is practice and detachment. He says, if you can just take care of these two, practice and detachment, the mind can be controlled. Such a beautiful assurance for all of us. Because practice part is consistency, which Krishna has repeated so many times. Consistency. Don't give up. And as I told all of you a few days ago, consistency becomes harder when people are not appreciating us. If somebody is always appreciating, encouraging, then it is easier. But if you think there is nobody to appreciate, nobody to clap, and that is being a problem, you should learn to appreciate yourself. You should learn to encourage yourself. You have to be your own biggest support. A lot of us, we are excellent critics of our own self. We can sit and thrash ourselves. But what is required Yeah, exactly. So what is required is we have to also clap for ourselves. We have to encourage ourselves. Remember there was a shloka where Krishna said that you have to raise yourself by yourself. Anika ji, you remember that shloka? You want to read it for us?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Which shloka is that?
6.5.
Okay, go ahead. You can read it.
Hare Krishna.
उत्तरेत् आत्मनात्मानं नात्मानम् अवसादयेत् आत्मैव ह्यात्मनो बन्धुः आत्मैव रिपुरात्मनः. Elevate yourself through the power of your mind and not degrade yourself, for the mind can be the friend and also the enemy of the self. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. So you have to raise yourself by yourself. You should not let yourself bring yourself down, because you are your own best friend and you can also be your own enemy. Very powerful. We also gave the example of a screw, and how when you fix a screw, it may feel like it is not going anywhere, but if you give up, it's going to fall down eventually. Just don't stop. Consistency is the key. If you keep rotating it, eventually it will go fix on the wall and then nobody can take it out. Just like that, be consistent. And Krishna has assured us, you take the initiative, you be consistent, you put in your efforts. And when you make progress, Krishna will also start helping you. But he wants us to first put in the efforts from our side. And this is why the detachment part again is so important, because if there is no detachment, then what happens? In other words, if there is a lot of attachment to a lot of things, then what happens is you're going to keep getting disturbed and distressed and disappointed with so many things that you will never have the bandwidth to focus on God or focus on meditation or anything. Like it rains, you are upset. It is a little cold, you are upset. Somebody is making noise, you are upset. So many attachments and so many aversions. Then the mind is just agitated all the time. An agitated mind cannot focus. And if you cannot focus, then no Dhyana Yoga for you. If there is no Dhyana Yoga, where is realization going to come from? You see, that is why Krishna is beating the drum so loudly, saying detachment, detachment, detachment. And Krishna is acknowledging the path is difficult. However, he is also assuring that just follow the principles I have given you and just do practice and detachment. Just practice what I'm saying. Even if you think you are not successful, don't give up and practice detachment. I mean, take care of your attachments, because if you have a baggage with you, then you cannot practice what I'm saying. See, it's very simple, right? Now, what does Arjuna do? Any guesses? Another question. Okay. Thank you, Arjuna. So what is Arjuna's question now? So Arjuna says, yes, Krishna, what you're saying now makes sense. But the famous last words of Arjuna, but what is the fate of the unsuccessful yogi who begins? In other words, somebody who listens to what you are saying and they begin on the path, they try and everything, they make some progress, but then they give up before they reach the ultimate goal. So he's asking, what happens to these people? In Hindi mein, they say, na idhar ka, na udhar ka. I mean, it's a valid question, but Arjuna is already thinking about, somewhere down the line he's going to give up. And he wants Krishna to tell him what happens if that happens. Like if I'm making some progress, but I have not got self-realization yet, and then I give up, then what happens? That's what he actually wants to know, but he's afraid of Krishna. So he's asking it indirectly. What happens to that yogi who gives up before he succeeds? तो बोलते ना किसी और के कंधे पे बंदूक रख के मारने का. So, but anyways, that question is valid. Because Arjuna, the way he is thinking is, such a person has spent so much time on spiritual path that they have not really spent much time on the material path. So if they have made a lot of progress and then they give up, they are neither succeeded in their spiritual goal, nor have they been successful in the material goal. So, and then he's using a very dramatic term. He's telling Krishna, will those people perish just like those broken clouds? The small clouds in the sky, they eventually disappear. because they cannot sustain themselves. Only the large clouds, they stay for a longer time. So Arjuna is asking, will those people perish like those small clouds? And he's saying, Krishna, please dispel this doubt of mine as well, and dispel my doubt completely. He's saying only you are capable of getting rid of all my doubt. Arjuna knows himself very well. He knows his mind is an endless doubt factory. It keeps generating doubt. So he's telling Krishna, you are the only one who is capable of getting rid of all my doubts. So please do so. Now, what you have to observe, one thing is Arjuna is in the mode of pariprashna. Very, very important. Because he has already surrendered to Krishna. Now he is not questioning Krishna. He is asking questions to Krishna so that he can learn and he can understand and he can evolve. Instead of focusing on his words, we have to focus on his mindset. His mindset is that of complete surrender and humility. Okay. And because he is in that mode, doesn't matter how many questions he is asking or how much doubts he has, Krishna patiently will answer all the questions and make sure that he gets all the knowledge that he needs. That is a lesson for us also. So even when we approach Bhagavan, when we approach God, when we have our own private chats with God, that should be our bhava. Bhava of surrender, bhava of humility, and pariprashna to God, and he will make sure that you find the answers. So I think with that we can conclude today's session. In the next session, we will see how Krishna is answering Arjuna's this question also. And if possible, next session we will complete chapter 6. That will be a very nice milestone for us. But as I told you, you can see Bhagavad Gita as 3 major sections of 6 chapters each. So completing the 6th chapter means we would have completed the first section of Bhagavad Gita. So that will be a very good milestone. So with your constant support and love, I think we can get there. Thank you so much, my dear Satsang members, Satsang families. I think I can stop talking and leave the floor open. If you have any questions, comments, go ahead.
Guruji, the last point you mentioned, the bhava of humility, and you should always have pariprashna, but you also said
surrender. Surrender. Surrender means what? Surrender means having faith even when what God is doing, even if it doesn't seem acceptable to you. I mean, you may have your own ideas, and if God is not, conforming to your ideas, then don't get upset, because then that is not surrender. Surrender means acceptance, complete acceptance. Deepaji, is that answering your question? Okay. It's a joy to see all of you, and seeing you. This is one of the, I think, best part of the week for all of us, that we are getting to see our satsang family. With Krishna's grace, let's continue. And next session, let us complete chapter 6. So with that, I think we can conclude today's session. Hare Krishna. See you all in the next session again.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Guruji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.